Nile? More like you must be in denial if you seriously think this band is good. Am I right, folks? Ha ha! Bazinga! Bada bing, bada boom! Gotta.
You already used that joke, idiot!
If you're so smart, why don't you come up with
You
something?
should get some new material!
No, come on, big man. Come on down here. Why don't you
Stop
come up with something
your
so
channel.
clever,
Delete your
so
channel.
fresh,
You don't know
since you've
anything.
got it
You
all
don't
figured
know.
out?
I'm
No, come on, come on. I dare you. Come on, come on.
Where's your album?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Coward. Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Nile entitled The Underground Awaits Us All. This is the 10th full-length studio album and the first in nearly 5 years from this American technical death metal crew known for their borderline obsession, shall we say, with the works of H.P. Lovecraft and more specifically, more famously, with ancient Egyptian history and mythology and Egyptian music. Tons of tight, crushing, pulverizing, hyper-technical assaults, riffs, beatdowns galore, menacing, guttural vocals, lyrics about ancient pharaohs and Egyptian deities and monsters and demons and otherworldly chaos, often further complemented by Egyptian music influences, choral vocals, tribal percussions, very gritty acoustic guitars and woodwinds and such. Their first 4 albums are absolutely undeniably fantastic. I have to concede I'm not as big of a fan of some of the stuff that follows, especially in that early to mid 2010s period. Records like At the Gate of Sethu and What Should Not Be on Earth just felt so phoned in and uninspired to me, lacking the dynamics and elements that make Nile who they are, that make Nile Nile, and also just generally lacking really exciting, really memorable songs with really brutal riffs. Thankfully, though, 2019's Vile Melodic Rites was a step back in the right direction, a very slick, well-produced, well-presented blast of technical death metal, maybe still lacking some of the same dynamics and elements. It still kind of felt like they were diluting, a lot of the Egyptian influence, but, overall, a solid record. I think in the Reviewing Every Nile album video we did, a month ago, I gave it, a 3.5 out of 5, and I would stand by that now. Now, to be honest, I went into this record not really expecting a lot to happen, just kind of expecting that this would be Vile Melodic Rites Part 2, and knowing that that would be good in and of itself, but, not really expecting it to be anything more than exactly that. And to a certain extent, I wasn't exactly wrong to have thought that. Nile isn't exactly reinventing the wheel or even their take on the wheel with this album. But to Niles' credit, as much as this is structurally a repeat of Vile Melodic Rites, it is also simultaneous to that a much bigger and much more explosive record. Yes, it's still very much a Nile album, but Nile sound more pumped up and fired up and pissed off on this album than on anything else they've released in at least 15, maybe even 20 years. It kind of reminds me of last year's Cryptopsy album with that in mind. It's just an absolute force, a wrecking ball with some of the most destructive and powerful and brutal grooves and technical assaults that I think we've gotten from Nile in some time. You've got the opening cut, Stele Vultures, which wastes no time setting the stage, the tone, and the mood for the entire album, and also diving headfirst into some of the most ridiculous, wild, and intense virtuosic displays of death metal that we've heard from Nile in a long time. There are tons of hyper-technical, Middle Eastern-inspired guitar leads piled on top of each other for days on end, creating towering, crushing walls that kind of loom over you constantly. It is an absolutely uncompromisably hard-hitting and savage cut, with not a single moment of rest or reprieve in its entire 6-minute runtime. Some newcomers to the Nile sound and to technical death metal in general might find this overwhelming, but personally I find it exhilarating, and I imagine a lot of Nile and tech death fans will feel the same way. And not only does the following cut match Stele Vultures' freak, it arguably gets even freakier. Don't believe me? Just listen to the title. It's literally called Chapter for not being hung upside down on a stake in the underworld and made to eat feces by the four apes. Right away, a very graphic image, one painted, might I add, with a variety of bodily fluids and such, is implanted directly into my mind. An absolute death metal juggernaut with equally menacing screams and more straightforward guttural vocals, wild, over-the-top guitar pyrotechnics, and more groovy technical riffs sandwiched in between some ballistic percussion. And to top it all off, lyrically, this thing is just revolting and weird. The title makes you think that it's very much about someone being forced to eat feces, and I'm pretty sure that is the case, but occasionally it reads more like somebody trying to convince themselves that they're not really into the idea of eating feces. As the band writes, I will not eat what I detest. What I detest is feces. I will not partake of it. Excrement. I will not consume it. It shall not enter me. It shall not come near my hands nor my mouth, nor shall it fall from my belly. Then there's Under the Curse of the One God, which is just pure classic Nile in all the best ways possible. Some insanely fast-paced riffing in the very beginning, some nice kind of slammy grooves and beat downs in various points throughout, and some very low-end kind of gut-wrenching gutturals. Plus, also an eerie, atmospheric, dramatic, action-packed climax that reintroduces the Egyptian elements into Nile's sound, complete with gongs and ominous moaning vocals and weird acoustics and strings. True Gods of the Desert is great as well, probably the only cut on the record that really slow things down that isn't a full-throttle, volatile, abrasive assault to the senses. That said, it's still disgustingly heavy, with some slow-burning riffs and grooves that bring to mind some of the doomier shades from like some of the mid-2000s Nile stuff. The track does an excellent job at teasing the listener as well, making you think that at some point it is going to explode in this very extreme and dramatic fashion, but it never really happens. The track just kind of keeps edging you with these wild screams and these like grating guitars. It creates a really unique kind of tension and flow and vibe and atmosphere. Dare I say, one of the strongest cuts on the record here. There's a phrase repeated throughout the album, "We've got to cleanse the black earth," which creates kind of a theme and a motif as well. It's often delivered through very dramatic kind of choral vocal work, like on Overlords of the Black Earth and Nakata 2, Enter the Golden Age. But you can also hear it being very carefully and subtly woven into haunting chants on Doctrine of Last Things, and also being delivered in a more kind of menacing, theatrical pomp on the aforementioned True Gods of the Desert, befitting more so of maybe Dimmu Borgir or Septic Flesh than Nile, but fuck it, it works in context of the song. I'm feeling a pretty solid 4 to 5 on this one. Its uncompromising rapid-fire assault is going to appeal to a lot of people, particularly to those who love Nile and who love technical and brutal death metal. It is an absolute roller coaster of over-the-top, twisted death metal. Again, I'm still disappointed that Nile is actively toning down the Egyptian elements and influences in their sound, but at least some of it is still present here, and I do appreciate that there are other twists and turns to compensate for this, plus also the generally brutal, exhilarating, like, feel and intense music. I don't really have much more to say. It's Nile mostly doing what they do. It is a massive step up in enthusiasm and energy and brutality from Vile Melodic Rites, and especially from the albums that preceded that. Solid 4 to 5, a great record. It sounds and feels massive and brutal. I think it's what a lot of people really want from Nile at this point, and I think a lot of people are going to be pretty fucking happy. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I am not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe, join us on Discord, maybe check out some merch on Redbubble. I don't know, maybe that's your thing. I don't know, give it a shot. Reviewing every Nile album, something else, I don't know what. Have a fantastic day, as always. Cheers. Goodbye. I love you.
Hey, Uncle Melty, kill yourself!
Are you still here? Get
Kill
the fuck out of
yourself!
here!